Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Finally, some hope in the Middle East. The ceasefire with Hezbollah could mean the time is right for Hamas to cut a peace deal. President Biden's national security advisor says Israel and the terror group are back to negotiating.
Meanwhile, Israel is closely watching its other northern neighbor after Islamic rebels captured Syria's second-largest city. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
Within the past few days, Islamist rebel forces launched a major offensive against the Syrian regime and now control the second-largest city, Aleppo.
This is unprecedented for the rebellion. The rebellion never held all of Aleppo, and it was expelled from all of Aleppo because it held the eastern part of the city for a while in 2016.
Over the weekend, the rebel forces continued their advance further south. Jonathan Spire is a Syrian expert with the Middle East Forum.
This must surely be a very major blow both to the Assad regime and indeed, I would say, to the larger regional alliance of which the Assad regime forms a part, namely that regional alliance headed by Islamic Republic of Iran.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the Syrian situation.
We are constantly following what is happening in Syria. We are determined to defend the interests of the State of Israel and to protect the achievements of the war.
As of now, I would say there are not major implications for Israel because all of this, of course, is taking place in northwest Syria, which is an appreciable amount of distance away from the Golan Heights and Syria's border with Israel.
In Lebanon, a somewhat shaky ceasefire is holding. With Hamas's strongest ally, Hezbollah, out of the war for now, Israel is putting pressure on the terror group to make a peace deal in Gaza.
One of their main partners in crime here, Hezbollah, has now cut a ceasefire deal, and they thought that Hezbollah would be with them till the end.
President Biden's national security advisor says Hamas, Israel, and intermediaries are all negotiating again.
And our hope is that we can generate a ceasefire and hostage deal.
On Monday, the IDF announced the death of Israeli-American Omer Nutra, a New York native taken hostage by Hamas on October 7th. Nutra's death follows the emotional propaganda video released by Hamas over the weekend of Israeli-American hostage Idan Alexander, who pleaded directly with President-elect Donald Trump.
Use your influence and the full power of the United States to negotiate for our freedom. Every day here feels like an eternity, and the pain from inside grows from day to day.
At a rally to free the hostages, Idan's mother told the crowd she spoke with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
He reassured me and promised that now, after reaching an arrangement in Lebanon, conditions are right to free you all and bring you home.
Meanwhile, the Syrian Christians in Aleppo worry they're in grave danger because of the Islamist rebels now in control.
When we've seen them take over areas in the past where Christians live, Christians have been treated badly, up to and including forced conversions to Islam and other acts of that nature.
I just want to state that the International Criminal Court, they've levied these sanctions. They've called for war crime trials against the leaders of Israel for actions in Gaza in response to October 7th. When are they going to call for trials for what's happened in Syria? Here you had Assad. He unleashed chemical weapons on his own citizens. That is a war crime. Turkey has cut off water to Kurds in northern Israel. That is a war crime. When you target civilians intentionally, war crime. When you have this ethnic cleansing, which is currently happening, they're trying to rid Syria of all Christians. Christians go back there 2,000 years. And there is silence at the UN and silence at the International Criminal Court. The double standard here is quite obvious, and we as Christians around the world need to stand up to it. It is clearly targeted at Israel. It's clearly anti-Semitism, and we need to say no, not on our watch. Well, for more on this story, Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem. Chris, could the advances of these Islamic rebels in Syria eventually pose a threat to Israel?
Well, that is possible, Gordon, which is why Netanyahu says they're watching developments closely. So far, physically, they're a long way from Israel's border. But if they ever got close to the border, these are enemies of Israel. These are jihadist groups who want to destroy Israel, just like the Syrian regime. And Gordon, there's lots of geopolitics going on here. Some of the puppet masters are here. On the one hand, Turkey is behind these jihadi groups, threatening the Syrian regime. On the other hand, Iran is fighting to keep the Assad regime alive. The reason? Syria is a key part of their regional strategy, gives them a land route to Lebanon. Also, Russia is fighting its ally with its ally, Syrian, and then they're fighting for their own interests. So there looks like there's a lot of fighting ahead with Syria as the battleground for all these actors. From an Israeli perspective, Gordon, both sides are enemies of the Jewish state, and some here are quoting the late Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin. Back in the 1980s, when Iraq and Iran were fighting, he was asked who he backed. And he said, we wish great success to both sides. And finally, you know, these rebels do pose a threat to Christians there in Aleppo and other places in Syria. Why? Christians really need to pray for their brothers and sisters that are in harm's way.
Is Israel's victories over Hezbollah, the destruction of its leadership, all the elimination of all the weapons, even the attack against Iranian forces that are allied with Hezbollah inside Syria, is all of that given an advantage to this Islamic group?
It's a great point, Gordon. It really has. It's left a vacuum inside Syria. Hezbollah was one of the main forces supporting the Assad regime. And now that they're out of the way, a very reduced fighting force, that did leave the vacuum an opportunity for these two Islamic armies backed by Turkey on their way down. So it was an offensive that took a lot of people by surprise. But Hezbollah, being such a degraded force, really has left a vacuum and an opportunity for these jihadist groups.
Give us some insight into the ideology. You know, at one point it was publicized that ISIS was trying to have a direct assault on Jerusalem, that was part of their core ideology. They're also being backed by Turkey. Erdogan has this dream of restoring the Ottoman Empire and becoming some kind of caliph. Is all of that in play in this current crisis?
Yeah, Erdogan's dream is to come here to take over Jerusalem. I mean, this was once an Ottoman part of the Ottoman Empire. He sees himself as, you know, a successor to those sultans in the Ottoman Empire. And I think the ultimate goal will be Jerusalem. A short-term goal, hopefully, for these jihadist groups would be Damascus and the overthrow of the Syrian regime. That would open the way here to Israel's border. So that's all part of their Sunni Islamist theology and ideology. That's what they want. They want to come here to Jerusalem and reestablish that caliphate that once ruled this area.
Is Hamas, you know, turning to the hostage crisis, and I just want to remind everyone they're Americans being held hostage by Hamas. Are they now ready for a ceasefire deal, or are they willing to release the hostages?
Well, there's hope here, Gordon, about that. They'll soften its demands. Now that Hezbollah has reached a ceasefire, you know, Hezbollah had promised that they're going to continue fighting until the war in Gaza was over, but that didn't happen. So now Hamas is basically on their own. But as far as we know, Hamas still wants their demands to be met. For the IDF to pull out of Gaza, they want to play a role in the future of Gaza. Those are non-starters for Israel. And as we have said many, many times, the three goals of the war for Israel: defeat Hamas, not allow it to govern Gaza after the war, and free the hostages. And on another note, Senator Lindsey Graham says he's been in touch with President Trump and has told Israelis he would like a Gaza ceasefire deal before his inauguration. He's focused on the hostage issue. Whether or not that can happen by January 20th remains to be seen if Hamas continues its demands.
Well, let's hope for peace. At the same time, I think we need to be pragmatic. Is this the potential for ceasefire for both Hamas and Hezbollah? Is it just allowing them a chance to reload?
You know, there is an Islamic concept called the Hudna, which is a temporary ceasefire. And the ceasefire in these Islamic terms is that there would be a temporary ceasefire allowing both Hezbollah and Hamas, or any Islamic group for that matter, to rebuild, to rearm, and then strengthen themselves when they can come back and fight their enemy once again. So while Hezbollah has been defeated in a great part, as well as Hamas, Still, it seems their ideology, they want to have a temporary ceasefire and then come back. Their goals to defeat, kill Jews and defeat the Jewish state.
Well, Chris, thanks for the insight, and stay strong. You're our watchman on the wall. Thank you for all that you do. Well, in other news, Republicans and even some Democrats are criticizing Joe Biden for issuing a presidential pardon to his son Hunter. Ephraim Graham has more on that story from our CBN newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, Hunter Biden faced the possibility of decades in prison on a number of charges. Before the election, President Biden repeatedly said he would not pardon his son. Dale Hurd has a look at what changed.
The presidential pardon spares Hunter Biden a possible prison sentence for federal felony gun and tax convictions, and is exactly what President Biden said he wouldn't do.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes. The pardon goes beyond Hunter's gun and tax charges, covering any offenses he committed or may have committed over a 10-year period, from January 2014 through December 2024. The move comes weeks before Hunter Biden was set to be sentenced and less than 2 months before President-elect Donald Trump returns to the White House. Trump posted on Truth Social, does the pardon given by Joe to Hunter include the January 6th hostages? A sign to some that Trump may pardon those convicted over what happened at the Capitol that day. Republican Congressman James Comer, who chaired one of the House probes into possible Biden family crimes, said in a statement, the charges Hunter faced were just the tip of the iceberg. President Biden and his family continue to do everything they can to avoid accountability. Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley posted on X, I'm shocked President Biden pardoned his son Hunter because he said many, many times he wouldn't, and I believed him. Shame on me. Even Colorado Democratic Governor Jared Polis blasted the pardon, saying that Biden put his family ahead of the country and that the move would tarnish his reputation. President Biden said he pardoned his son because he believes Hunter was the victim of a politically motivated prosecution. And that's what Donald Trump's new nominee to run the FBI says he wants to stop. Before his nomination, Kash Patel was asked by Fox News how he could restore trust in the FBI and the Justice Department.
One thing. Exposure of corruption. Put out the documents, put out the evidence. We only have gotten halfway down the Russiagate hole. The people need to know that their FBI is restored by knowing full well what they did to unlawfully surveil them.
Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin told CNN Patel will just take orders from Trump.
I haven't seen what the proof is that the FBI has been weaponized against a political party or the Department of Justice. I mean, the deep state, nobody's ever defined it. Apparently, it just means anybody who doesn't do the will of Donald Trump.
All of the weeping and gnashing of teeth, all of the people pulling their hair out are exactly the people who are dismayed about having a real reformer come into the FBI and clean out the corrupted partisans who sadly have burrowed into senior career positions at the FBI.
The current FBI director, Christopher Wray's term runs until 2027. If he doesn't retire, he would have to be fired by the White House. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Heavy snowfall and freezing temperatures are hammering parts of the Northeast. 5 states in the Great Lakes area could see historic amounts of lake effect snow. That happens when extremely cold air passes over warm lake water. One town in upstate New York already getting 59 inches as of last night. Harsh cold with temperatures of 10 to 20 degrees below average hit the northern plains last week. Now frigid temperatures are heading for the eastern third of the United States. The Christmas season is officially underway. This weekend, families from our Hampton Roads community came out to enjoy the season's cheer at the Founders Inn.
Horse-drawn carriage rides were part of the festivities at the 2024 Founders Inn Grand Illumination. Families came from all over to take part in the celebration.
I really enjoyed the community coming together, especially around the Christmas tree, caroling. I really love that. Also, the aerobatics, that's just amazing. I love that.
My favorite part was definitely all the decorations and the Christmas tree. It just brings back so many memories from when I was little and coming here on Christmas Eve.
They enjoyed Irish dancers, a magic show.
I like the magic show.
Meeting Santa, face painting, balloon fun, and of course, lots of beautiful music. The traditional special moment came with Gordon Robertson reading the Christmas story from the pages of God's Word.
For there is born to you this day in the city of David a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. And this will be the sign to you. You will find a babe wrapped in a swaddling cloth, lying in a manger.
The special event culminated in the lighting of the Founders Inn English Garden.
3, 2, 1. Merry Christmas!
A Merry Christmas to one and all.
Holiday cheer right outside our window. Terry?
Well, it's always incredibly beautiful over there. I want you to know about some of the upcoming holiday events at the Founders Inn and Spa. For young children, there's breakfast with Santa or a teddy bear tea. The whole family will enjoy the Christmas Eve dinner buffet and the Christmas Day brunch. And you can dance the night away at the New Year's Eve gala. This year's theme is a snow soiree. Just go to CBN.com for the dates and times of all these holiday events. We'd love to have you come visit.